Silicon Valley, technology, art, green, and sustainability.
It's with great pleasure that I'm able to introduce our next guest speaker, President Bill Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to be here. I'm not quite sure why I'm here because I'm not a scientist. I'm famously technologically challenged, and I'm really here to say go get 'em. But I would like to offer a few observations, and at least you'll know they're mine. One of the best things about being a former president, you can say whatever the heck you want. So I had all these notes, and here's what I did to them. So now I have to wear my glasses so I can read my scratching. So I'm glad to be here. It's exciting, but I want to point out why I think this is such an important time for this third conference on innovation to be occurring. First of all, there are some hazards to the innovation project right now. We have massive new recovery technologies in oil and gas, which could lead us down the primrose path of thinking we don't have to keep using less energy and developing clean energy and new technologies. We've gone from a high of 62% oil imports to less than 50% just in the last few years. North Dakota has used these new recovery technologies in oil and gas to drive its unemployment rate down to 3.6%, a rate the rest of the country would kill for. And a lot of people are tempted to say, well, let's just go for this and nothing else. The unemployment rate has dropped to 8.3%, but if the workforce participation rate, that is, the people looking for jobs, were the same today as it was the day I left office, the unemployment rate would be well over 10%, not counting the number of people in part-time jobs who are looking for full-time jobs. And we're the only major country in the world that has one political party where apparently it's ideologically imperative to deny the reality of climate change. Budget. The budget constraints, which are leading Congress to tell everybody they've asked for too much money, could force us to give in to an easy temptation not to continue to invest more and more and more in innovation and research, which I think is one of the government's most important priorities. On the other hand, there are a lot of pluses about this time, all the exciting discoveries and avenues of research that you've already been discussing, the evidence that we now have that is abundant that investments in changing the way we produce and consume energy can launch an enormous economic boom for our country and for the world. And the fact that even when the government's role is uncertain, we have this huge venture capital machine in America that continues to invest in clean energy, almost $56 billion in 2011 alone. The sector continued to grow through 2008 and 2009 when the economy was suffering. And so we're left with a time of real excitement here that probably won't make the front page of the Washington Post tomorrow, unless I say something outrageous which will embarrass the Secretary of State. As I said in a little book I wrote on what happened in the last 30 years and what I think should be done now, I am a huge fan of President Obama's energy strategy and his Secretary of Energy. I like this, all of the above strategy, as long as we are moving toward a substantial reduction in greenhouse gases with growth. And I think that the best example of how we should make decisions, and it's so different from how decisions are often made in political environments today, was the agreement with all the stakeholders to dramatically increase the mileage capacity of automobiles. You had the company, the union, the government, the environmental groups, and an agreement that will dramatically reduce our reliance on oil, dramatically reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and over the next few years, create 150,000 new jobs. And that needs to be hammered home. When Walmart just reduced its packaging by 5%, it had the effect of taking 211,000 diesel trucks off the road, and it saved the company's supply chain $3.6 billion that could be devoted to other things. FedEx has a carbon neutral information technology center in Colorado already. When Germany adopted its heavily subsidized leap into solar power, I have to say even I was skeptical. After all, in Germany, the sun shines on average as much as it does in London. But Deutsche Bank did a study, not Greenpeace, Deutsche Bank, which estimated that the Germans had netted 300,000 jobs out of it. During the same period, even before the Europeans adopted their 20-20-20 strategy, Sweden grew its economy 50% and reduced its greenhouse gas emissions by 7%. Denmark grew its economy 75% and kept its emissions constant, with the result that they did not have an increase in income inequality that we and most other wealthy countries have experienced. Wages rose, and the country moved with confidence into the future. So, by way of background, what does that mean? What should we actually do? First of all, I think the government should invest even more money in ARPA-e and its ability to connect with other research centers, like-minded public and private and mixed efforts throughout the country. The agency was created in 2007, bill passed by a Democratic Congress, signed by President Bush, and then got a real jolt of money from the stimulus package after President Obama took office. If ARPA-e is at the apex of a network of other research efforts, they can do that. They can be nimble and fast, and everything's faster now than it was 30 years ago, but they can still have the luxury of doing long-term investments in discoveries that could change our world in ways that I can't imagine. I think we have to make a commitment to that. And I believe we need to try to build within the Congress a bipartisan consensus for that. When we had a similar upheaval in American politics in 1994, and a different group, the pre-Tea Party, Tea Party Congress won a majority in '95. The head of the National Institutes of Health was another Nobel Prize winner, Harold Varmus. He did a very clever thing. He brought out all the new members of Congress to the National Institutes of Health, and he actually took them into their patient centers and laid them in beds and showed them what they were doing. And since they all wanted to live forever, they voted for like all the rest of us, they voted for generous appropriations in areas that we needed. We need to do that here. The research budget of the United States is very limited compared to the size of the deficit, the size of the debt, the size of the annual budget. And if you look at what's going on here, it would be a terrible mistake